Hello everyone, happy 2023, and today we'll be looking at a classic and a personal favorite of mine, Disney's Sleeping Beauty. Oh man, what a classic. This is one of those really dark Disney films that's difficult to watch when you're a kid. I mean, that fireplace scene still creeps me out to this day. My goodness. It's a film that gets studied a lot because of its timelessness, but if we can take a closer look at its story, we can learn that this film is suggesting that evil is an inevitable force, but it can be overcome through love. And when I mean love, I'm not just talking about romantic love, but love in general. Love can be goodness or patience. This is actually a common theme that you will find in many early Disney films produced by Walt Disney himself. So with that in mind, let's begin. If we take a look at the beginning, we have a very angry Maleficent who wasn't invited to the christening of Princess Aurora.
You weren't wanted. Not what?
In fact, historically speaking, not being invited to a christening was considered a great insult because an event like a royal christening was a social one. It wasn't a private party. But to add insult to injury, notice how the king and queen had invited the three fairies, the physical embodiments of good, who present Aurora all these wonderful gifts, but they didn't invite the self-proclaimed mistress of all evil, treating her with just tremendous disrespect, suggesting that the king and queen, as parents, simply didn't want anything bad happen to Aurora. I mean, this is a very evil fairy that we're talking about here, so if you're a parent, you generally just don't want to invite that kind of presence in this kind of royal social events. Yet the fact that Maleficent comes anyway suggests that evil will always come whether or not if it's invited. It's an inevitable force of nature that comes and goes however it wants. Being so insulted, she ends up cursing the child and leaves. But the last fairy presents a gift that can weaken the curse so that instead of dying, Aurora will fall into a deep sleep only broken by true love's kiss. Unfortunately, they can't just undo the curse, but Maleficent's power is just too powerful for them to completely stop. But wait, why true love's kiss? Doesn't that mean romantic love innately destroys evil? No. If we want to understand some of these stories, we have to understand a bit about the man behind the myth as well, like who was Walt Disney and what did he value? I know he didn't officially direct any of these films, but all of them were heavily supervised by him, and animation sequences needed to be approved by him before the coloring phase. Reading his autobiography books, he was just a man who had a big heart, wanting to give people a sense of hope and goodness and love to the world. That's an oversimplification for the sake of this video's time length, but I would encourage anyone to read about his life story to know more. But my point is that these films were really made in his image and it reflects his values. There's a trace of Walt in all of these movies. I don't believe that Disney or any of his employers at the time had any intentions of saying that romantic love specifically is what trumps all hardships, because let's face it, even romantic love can be a serious headache. It's my belief that true love's kiss here was used as a strong example for an expression of love in general. Like how, again, patience is an expression of love. For more information on the true love's kiss trope, please click on the link to Isaac Carlson's video in the description below. Now, back to the analysis. After the fairies change up the curse, the story is now set up. The rest of the film is about the good fairies' battle against Maleficent, the ultimate battle of good versus evil. Or just the Battle of the Fairies. Despite the title Sleeping Beauty referring to Aurora, she's actually not the main hero for this film. It's not even Prince Philip either, or any of the human characters for that matter. It's actually the three fairies. They are the ones who make all the decisions and drive the action. The humans are just used to fight the conflict. Sound epic to you yet? So we transition 16 years after the fairies keep Aurora hidden from Maleficent, but despite all their attempts, the dark curse laid upon her did come true either way.
Whatever are we going to do?
Implying to us that evil cannot be avoided no matter how hard you try to escape it. But there is hope.
No!
According to someone by the name of Jordan Peterson, whose analysis on Sleeping Beauty said that the prince wasn't just a man who was coming to rescue the princess, but that he's actually a representation of Aurora's own conscience. In other words, it is Aurora trying to wake herself back up. Consciousness is symbolically presented as masculine, according to Peterson, in several stories and myths. I'm not entirely sure if that's what the Disney filmmakers had in mind back in the 1950s, but you do have to remember that none of these stories like Snow White or even Sleeping Beauty were invented invented by Disney. These were stories that have been around for centuries, and there's still a lot of debate going around on where these stories really originated from. Disney just happened to adapt them for the screen just like any other studio at the time. So I can give this an exceptional pass because it doesn't change what I believe what the story here is trying to tell us, that evil will come regardless if it is invited or not, or even if it does, there is light at the end of the tunnel, that there's always a way and you can push forward even in the midst of its darkness. That is why the fairies are so important in this story, because they represent light in the midst of the dark. They may not be able to completely reverse what Maleficent did to Aurora or really avoid her, but what they can do is play by her rules and still defeat her. I would also argue that it's really the three fairies who are the true heroes of this story, in the sense that they are the ones who actually do save Aurora. Think about it. Without them, Prince Philip would never have escaped from Maleficent and would not have the right tools to defeat her. If they didn't save him, Aurora was just doomed. By the time we reach the conflict, the prince battles and kills Maleficent and all is well.
I just love happy endings. Yes.
Alrighty. Whew. There was so much to unpack for this episode, and yet there was still way more stuff that we had to leave out for the sake of time. But this is what really makes Sleeping Beauty a classic, because it tells a fascinating story about the constant struggle and conflict of good versus evil, which I believe is a lesson that we all need, because everyone in the world will face a facet of evil at some point in their lives, and you'll find that in a lot of times it can't always be avoided, but by learning how to win against it. It may not always be something really extreme, but even small things that frustrates you, like there's tension going on at work or something that isn't working the way you thought. With such a profound theme found in Sleeping Beauty, we can all learn something from it, that we can win against evil at the end of the day, and that the way to do it is through love. I hope everyone enjoyed this episode, and if you like this video, please hit the like button and please subscribe if you want to see more. See you next time.